Hello everyone, Lamani here again, and we're starting your Monday off right with a build guide that has been asked for time and time again. It's hammer time, baby. I want to show off the hammer setup with two separate build distinctions, a higher damage bruiser or a tanky support with more healing capabilities. In either build, you'll have a high level of CC that is almost always off cooldown. You're always tankier than whatever you're fighting, and you can take on packs of level 60 plus mobs without even breaking a sweat. Even elites. The hammer has shined as one of the most prominent healing metas in current group PvP. While it does not necessarily shine because of its damage, it shines because you will almost always outlast the other target and CC them so much that it may just be better for them to alt F4. Again, in the 1v1, it doesn't shine because of its raw damage potential, but when you're dueling somebody, you will undoubtedly beat them into a pulp because they just can't move. In terms of PvE, this build excels at taking on higher level elite mobs and bosses, as well as pulling massive packs. You take a very limited amount of damage while chaining abilities together to help you defensively and as a means of CC so that you can have high AoE output. In terms of dedicated healing, I've changed the build slightly to synergize well with the setup, but it can certainly heal all sorts of content as is. With that being said, it can be modified to run in something like an expedition where you may need higher healing output. Whether you want to use this for leveling or endgame, we can put you in the best position possible to perform at the highest level in the hammer role. We are going to take advantage of the fortify stacking mechanic and defensive capabilities in the game to negate almost all damage. While we are very tanky, the damage we put out is lower, but it should never be underestimated. The mastery points in the hammer compensate for lower amounts of strength and higher focus for healing. So, whatever you're doing on this fine Monday, take a nice deep breath and get those big, bright eyes ready to watch some hammer content. Alright gamers, so we have something a little bit different today. This is different than I would typically do for my build guides, but I like this setup a little bit more. It's easier to show you some things. So, the first thing with any of my builds, my hybrid builds, my healing builds, this is how I set up my allotted points through leveling in my attributes. I will always get myself to 150 focus because that gives me the increased healing output. So that means all I have to do is switch my gear up, whether I'm running a strength build, whether I'm a dedicated healer, if I want to go a dex setup, I will always have that 150 focus for increased healing, and gearing gets me the rest. I'll put the rest of the points into constitution. Typically all my gear will always be like a primary stat split between focus and con, strength and con, dex con, int con, whatever and what have you. It just makes it the easiest for me personally when I'm trying to switch between sets. Now, what I can say is, because the cost of resetting attributes is so much lower now, you can just set this willy-nilly and do whatever you need to get the bubbles that you want. All right, so how does our healing setup for the life staff change with our hammer build? It's going to be pretty similar on the healing side, but the protector side is where we get some differences. I will say, if you want to be healing expeditions or some group content where you require more healing output and will want to take Light's Embrace, please refer to my healing build guide that I put out in the past or my Outpost Rush guide that I've recently put out. So, what are we going to do? Absolved, Blissful Touch, and Mending Touch. You can still heal. Like in Outpost Rush, you can shoot through everybody and get tons of Blissful Touch healing. You'll see that in my Outpost Rush guide, how much healing we actually get from Blissful Touch. And having Mending Touch is super important for removing debuffs on teammates. While you can't remove debuffs on yourself, it's really great just to have this for any kind of content that you're healing to remove things. And you're going to need it so that we can get down to Divine Blessing and get more healing output. First ability we're going to take, Sacred Ground. Sacred Ground comes in clutch with a Fortify stacking build in this hammer setup because of the Fortifying Sacred Ground perk. We also get a ton of extra healing by putting the Blessed perk in for 50% more from all healing while in Sacred Ground. The hammer is focused on staying in the Sacred Ground, giving yourself fortifies, and just not taking damage and healing everything up instantly with heals over time. Next, we'll take Desperate Speed and Revitalize just for some reduced cooldown. Never hurts when you're on your life staff, just throwing out some heals to get some CDR there. And just like normal, we'll go into Intensify. What you'll do is you'll want to hit the enemy with 3 heavy attacks before putting out any of your heals over time to increase your healing. It just makes it so you have a little bit more sustain through your heals over time. And then Sacred Protection, just a free 5% healing, and that will allow us to get Divine Blessing. Again, this is the side we will always use on the healing side. It just makes the most sense. We don't take Divine Embrace, and we don't take Splash of Light. Now, where's it change on the Protector side? We're going to take Oop, friends. I love using Oop. I think it's really strong, and for this hammer style build, it just makes us the strongest possible. Does it do a lot of healing? On the front end, it heals for about 300, 400, 500 just on impact, but then it gives you that 7.5% weapon damage heal over time. Not a ton, can heal like about 200 a second, but it's still some sustain. But the real reason why we're taking it is that 10% fortify for 20 seconds. Now with everything we have and buff duration increases, we can get that fortify to last 30 seconds on us between perks and buff duration. The one important thing to note is I would love to save points and put them in other things, but because of patch 1.0.5, we do need to take Aegis if we're planning to solo on this build. If you shoot Orb of Protection at the ground without Aegis, you will not get its benefits. You will only get its benefits if you've taken up to the second point at least and shoot it through teammates. So at that point, it's just worth going all the way for Aegis so that you can give it to yourself. It just makes more sense. Now here's where we hit the fork in the road. I will have 2 life staff builds bookmarked. It's going to depend whether or not you want more haste and more utility out of beacon, or if you just want more output in general for your healing. So it's kind of divided between individualistic styles of play and group-centered styles of play. So it kind of just depends on your play style. The first way, I think, is really great for chase down potential and having that ability to keep up with the enemy. So you could just put all 4 points into taking beacon so that we get increased duration, bigger surface area for more healing of others, and we put a haste buff on everybody. This could be really great for PvP, and so I think it shines more as a PvP life staff hammer build. So you could do this. This is the first bookmark. Now, what else can we do? We'll take all the points out of there. We'll keep them in orb, and we could put 1 point into beacon. We need to take beacon no matter what. This gives you 3 points to flex, and I would say you can flex them between Bend Light, Protector's Touch, Protector Strength, and then I feel like with this build, Glowing Focus would be a necessity. So Glowing Focus will make your Fortify on your Orb of Protection last longer, but it will not make the heal over time on Beacon last longer, even though it says it does. Beacon will be done after 15 seconds. So the only real application of Glowing Focus is to extend Fortify. So you could do that, and then we could just get healing increases through Protector's Touch and Bend Light. I would say as far as healing effectiveness goes, take this setup if you want the most healing capability and the highest healing output, and not necessarily PvP potential. You could also, instead of taking Protector Strength, take Protector's Touch, but I think if you're going to take any of these 3, Bend Light is a must. So for the PvE focused hammer build, I would do this, something like this. And for PvP, I would take out these points and put them into Beacon. So if you're really just looking for some outpost rush, looking for some war stuff, I would take this setup. Keep both in mind. Okay, so here we are on the hammer side of the build. Now I'm going to show you how I set it up, but there are a couple tweaks you can make to put out more damage or to best fit a certain PvP scenario. I'll give you the general build that I would use. So first point we're going to put in, we're going to start on the Juggernaut side. Stick to the right side. Gain in power on a heavy attack, increasing all attack damage by 20% for 4 seconds. The big thing with this build is we're just constantly going to be heavy attacking, and so we'll just get more damage by keeping that heavy attack chain going and CCing people. It's much easier to hit people with the heavy attack with the CC that we have between flattens and stuns. Next point, Hardened Steel. So this is the real big reason why we're going to just keep heavy attacking. We get grit, so we can't be interrupted or staggered while we're heavy attacking. This allows you to cheese a lot of mechanics and knockbacks and things like that. But we'll also get a 15% damage reduction while we're in the heavy attack animation. Again, on top of the Fortify, having 15% damage reduction is kind of insane. Wrecking Ball is next. So this is a flatten, so you can use a heavy attack instantly into a Wrecking Ball to animation cancel the end of a heavy attack, and I'll show you that, and get more damage output and chain heavy attacks together. We'll put both points into this. Safety measures, on successful hit, gain another Fortify, granting 20% damage resistance. So another Fortify to stack on top of the Fortifies that we already have from the life staff. It's nuts. We'll also take Breathing Room. All targets within 1.5 meters of the target hit are also flattened. This is just really great in something like Outpost Rush or Wars, where everybody's stacked together. You just get more CC. It's really, really nice. Next point we're going to put in. Quick Recovery. Quick Recovery synergizes super well with the heavy attack stuff that we'll get on this side between Hammer Time and Hardened Steel. Again, between Hammer Time and Hardened Steel, we'll also change this We'll also synergize this with the Refreshing Strikes perk on a hammer to get even more cooldown reduction, meaning more CC. Next point we'll take, Contemption, another synergy pick for the heavy attack. Once they're under 30% health, increase damage done by heavy attacks by 15%. Just a really nice perk to have. Now, where else can we put points on this side? I would say your last point, you can either take Power Through the Pain for 1 second after taking damage, deal 35% extra damage. It's a little hard to get a hammer swing in that window, and it does look like it's bugged at the moment and doesn't always proc. I would take this a lot. It can be nice, but I think for more consistent damage output, it's going to make more sense to take Epitome of Bonk given the current PvP meta where there's so much heavy armor. Increasing armor penetration is key right now. So this is what I would do on the Juggernaut side, but keep Power Through the Pain in mind. The goal though is to not take any damage, and so it may not make sense to always take Power Through the Pain. This can be a nice little damage spike, but again, the hammer swing does take a little bit to get going, so for the purposes of consistent damage, I would take Epitome of Bonk. Now, on the Crowd Crusher side, we're going to take Outnumbered. Increase damage absorption by 10%, so essentially Fortify, if surrounded by 2 or more enemies within 3 meters of the player. This happens a lot in high group PvP, happens a lot in PvE. It's just more defensiveness, and we can always use that. Where will we go next? There's 2 things you can do. If you want a light attack, which I don't light attack as much, I throw one in occasionally, but because we have Refreshing Strikes, we still do get some CDR. So you could take Acceleration, but I think Guarded Sprint, reduced damage taken by 10% while sprinting, is just better. So while you're on the move, in general, on top of everything else, it just gives you more damage reduction. The big goal with this build setup is damage reduction. So we take Guarded Sprint, then I'd put Shockwave in, and I'd take both points into Shockwave. So this is going to slam the hammer on the ground. It's going to do a little bit of damage, but the big thing is that it stuns everybody. So you will open up with a Shockwave so that you can then start your heavy attack chain, because stuns in this game act as a sleep. So until you hit them, they will not move, but if you do hit them before the 2-second duration is up, then they'll be active and no CC will be on them. We'll take the first point, which then adds a weaken, decreases the damage dealt from their attacks, but we'll also put on a perk that gives our Shockwave Rend, which will just increase our damage output because it'll start to pen more armor like Epitome of Bonk. We'll also take Meteoric Crater, expand the effective range of Shockwave to a 4-meter radius. This is so far in group PvP. When you just run into a group and hit Shockwave, you hit everybody. Fantastic. What's next? We're so CC heavy that we have to take Concussive Impact. 15% more damage against targets affected by Warhammer debuffs. Why not? This is going to synergize very well with the final perk Aftershock, so whenever we hit with any of our abilities, including Wrecking Ball, Shockwave, or Path of Destiny, it will apply a slow to them, meaning we will essentially have 15% increased damage all the time. On the topic of Path of Destiny, the really important point to put in here is Seismic Waves. This is what's going to give you the stagger and what will apply the Aftershock, but this will act as an interrupt, so you can whip it out. You can use it when you're chasing people down, when you're initiating. It's a great way to get somebody to stop running and catch up to them, because we do lack some mobility in the hammer. So Path of Destiny is very, very good for that. Now what I will say is Stimulated Reduction is kind of a flex point. The 5% cooldown for each enemy hit with Path of Destiny only applies to Path of Destiny, not everything. So what would I do? Instead, I would certainly take Prevailing Spirit all the time, but because we have to get the 10 points on this side because we want Aftershock and we can't flex it into something like Power Through the Pain, I would put it into Acceleration. So reduce Warhammer cooldowns by 7% when using light attacks. It just synergizes really well when you're using Refreshing Strikes, throwing in those light attacks. If you only have a tight little window to hit somebody, why not take it? I think there's more value in that than Stimulated Reduction personally, because we'll get more cooldown reduction from hitting with a light attack than we would one enemy with Path of Destiny. Sure, if you hit 20 people, or if you hit a bunch of people, it'll give you a significant amount of cooldown, but I just think there's more value here in terms of 1v1 and general content. And then our last point will go into Aftershock, 20% slow for 4 seconds, and this synergizes very well with Concussive Impact, giving us essentially constant 15% damage increase. So, party people, if you're coming from the bookmark, this is the setup for the Warhammer that I would suggest using for PvP, group PvP content, even PvE if you're healing, everything. It's so good whether you're in a healing setup or a damage setup. There's so much CC, it's fantastic. All right, let's give you a little bit of an attribute breakdown and how we can distinguish between the more tanky build and the more damage focused build. The tank build would be more PvP focused, damage build would be general open world content that I would use it for, but you can use each for everything, just up to your personal preference. So the more tankier build, you'll see instantly I'm in a heavy loadout. Normally I play in medium. It just makes more sense when we're playing a fortify monster to play heavy. I have all focus con on my gear so that I can heal the best, and I'm still running Onyx gems, so I get that 1% physical damage reduction. I just think the most damage that we'll see in PvP in general content is physical. It's no longer bugged, it will only do physical. So I still continue to take Onyxes. Feel free to switch out to a diamond if you want both. In terms of perks that we actually use, it's important, one, to get Fortifying Sacred Ground. This is an absolute must-have. Getting a Fortify from Sacred Ground is just nuts in general when you're healing. I would say in all kinds of content, take this, but especially for this build with all the Fortify we get from Oop and our hammer. Next perk I'd say you have to have is Sundering Shockwave. So Shockwave now applies a rend, reducing target's damage absorption, and on this piece it's 17% for 10 seconds. That applies to everyone hit by the Shockwave. It's essentially a 17% armor pen for 10 seconds. That will really help you kill people and compensate for some of the damage that you lose, and just make it so your teammates can kill them pretty fast. This is an absolute must as well. Another one that you could take, Penetrating Wrecking Ball, if you can find it, is nice. Wrecking Ball pens 17% of the target's armor. That's only on your Wrecking Ball flatten, but a little bit of extra damage doesn't hurt. And then the last one just applies to Path of Destiny. It heals a little bit more when you use Path of Destiny. That's all I'd say for super necessary perks. You could also go for something like cooldown reduction on your armor for more CC, or take the Resilient perk to give you more critical hit reduction, or just striker slash damage reduction. Anything works. In terms of accessories, I am running Infinity Crystal. Yes, I'm going mainly focus con, getting the strength here, but these are the 3 perks I would highly emphasize in having for this build. Divine, healing yourself is just insane. Having more of that healing will help you in the long run. Fortified, we apply so many fortifies, and having any duration increase will just help us. And then health is just a must. Have 9% more max health. I'm at 10k health right now with this current setup. My ring, big thing on the ring is having Sacred. When you're healing, you need Sacred. That's pretty much all. Whatever you can get with Sacred. And then my earring, I'm using Ill-Gotten Gain. I think regenerating is fantastic for this build. Also having Refreshing Toast in case you want to pop a health potion. And then just extra con for me. Life Staff, Blessed and Refreshing Move until death, baby. Blessed is just necessary. You heal so much more with Blessed in comparison to a higher gear score without Blessed. Test it yourself. You need Blessed. Refreshing Move is great. Light and heavy attacks reduce active weapon cooldowns by 2.5%. Just great for any kind of healing scenario. Really recommend getting your faction life staff, or if you're like me, you want to keep grinding Outpost Rush so you can get the one with Fortifying Sacred Ground and Blessed that can roll up to 595. For the hammer, the absolute must-have is that it has Refreshing Move. We heavy attack so much, and because we can't be interrupted, we'll just keep heavy attacking and heavy attacking and heavy attacking. We get the cooldown reduction from the mastery point, but we also get more cooldown reduction on top of that from this point. The other point I would say take into it is either Enchanted, because we do heavy attack so much, or Keenly Empowered, just to get a flat damage increase whenever you crit. Really great stuff there. Put in a tier 2 Amber Gem here. Watch my video on gems if you want to understand why. And then in the staff, just take a diamond. This is going to give us the greatest impact to our healing. It's just another modifier on top of everything else. When I'm in this setup, I have these attributes. 63 strength is just kind of a thing that happens because of the way I gear with the traits that I want. So ideally, if you're going for more damage, you want to at least get the 100 so that you get more damage to heavy attacks because we do heavy attack so much. For focus, we want to at least hit the 200 point. 20% duration on casted buffs applies to the Fortify. And then we want the 150 for 20% healing output. And then con, you need to have at least 100 so that you get increased max health by 10% of your physical armor. And because we're in heavy, we get more health. Ideally, I would drop all of the strength that I could and all of the focus to 200 that I could and go up to focus con 200. 20% increased armor will not only give us more reduction, it'll give us more health. And then we're in PvP, we are just a CC healing utility monster. This isn't ideal for this kind of setup, but it's what I've got. It's what I'm working with. It still works very, very well. But again, ideally 200 here, limit your strength. Perks are more of the necessity. Now, how would I flip more into a damage setup? I want to keep these perks, Sundering Shockwave, because that's just more damage I'll be able to put out, and Fortifying Sacred Ground because this build is so Fortify heavy and we need it. What am I going to do? I don't love playing in a heavy loadout. You can. So you could set up a strength loadout where you're in heavy armor. go for it. I like playing in medium. I like being more mobile if I'm doing more damage. Where would I change some things? Change out my pants to be pure strength and light. I would need to change my helmet because I need these perks and it's just the gear that I have. So I have a random strength con helmet in my bag that I'm going to use for some testing on stuff later. So I would just throw that on. And then the other thing I need to do is change my gloves. So I just throw on these strength con gloves. I'd love to switch out my earring right now too. But with my current setup, I'd go down to 99 con, and I just can't do that. So I need to find a different piece somewhere and just get a little bit more item level. Probably my helmet. And then I'm at 106 strength, 119 con, still at 200 focus, and I can pump out a ton of damage just heavy attacking. All right, let's give you some PvE breakdowns to show you where this build really shines in this style of content. What you'd want to do when opening up on a target is always hit them with your 3 heavy attacks to get intensify rolling for all of your hots. Switch over to your hammer and open with a stun. This is going to best align your first heavy attack. Because you have time to position yourself and get your heavy attack in a good spot, you could get behind them so that you can crit. Then hit them with your next heavy attack and instantly go into a wrecking ball to flatten them. You'll animation cancel the end and then instantly knock them back down where you can do another heavy attack. Then if you want to follow that up, hit them with another heavy attack and Path of Destiny and stagger them again to keep your slow duration up to keep increased armor up. At that point, by 1 or 2 more heavy attacks, you should have another CC just about up. You just keep rinsing and repeating this little rotation, and you'll see me do it pretty effectively on 2 level 63 elite targets with so much ease. I barely take any damage, and I just easily take them down. These targets are also great to show it off because you can see sometimes I interrupt the little heal that these targets do. It really doesn't matter how many targets you're facing, you should be able to stay alive. You'll have enough CC between cooldown resets because you get that grit on your heavy attack. You just don't take damage, but the rotation will always stay the same. Stun, heavy attack, instantly wrecking ball to cancel the end of that heavy attack animation into another heavy attack, into a Path of Destiny if you can get it off, and then another heavy attack. And then just keep heavy attack spamming because they can interrupt you. You get damage reduction and cooldown and rinse, repeat over and over and over again. The more targets you can hit with your heavy attack, the quicker your cooldowns will be down. One other thing to mention throughout this footage is just look back and see how many fortify buffs I have at one time. You get so much reduction. While this build does lack mobility, I think it can play a great role in leveling if this is the style of build you're looking to play, just because you can pull so many mobs effectively and grind them down for quests. Just be sure that no matter what you're doing, you're continuously refreshing your Sacred Ground and Orb of Protection buffs. Otherwise, this build will not work. And then in terms of utility in PvP, specifically for War and Outpost Rush, you can be part of that squad that just dives into the thick of it, give everybody fortify buffs, fortify yourself a little bit extra, CC, do everything that they need in order to take over the other team. While this footage is with my tankier setup, it goes exactly the same with a damage setup. The numbers are just a little bit higher. You play it the same kind of way. You juke around some of the hits. Just give yourself fortify and heal yourself up. You'll just kill things a little bit faster. You might not be able to pull as many. I really think you can play this build anywhere. You could use it as a healer. You could strictly be a utility CC carry. You could be a damage dealer. You could be an expedition healer. Honestly, I think you could freaking tank with this. There's a lot to do with the hammer. So for PvP, I did not have any Outpost Rush content right away to show you. I will have some in the future. So for now, watch this 1v1. I know I said that it doesn't necessarily shine in 1v1s because of damage, but through your healing, fortify, and CC ability, you will never lose a duel. Always open up with your life staff, try to get the intensifies up so that you can beacon them, then hit them with the orb when they're close and Sacred Ground. This way, if they CC you in any way, you will have your safety net. It'll get your fortifies rolling and keep you topped up. Then, just like we were saying before, same rotation. You stun, line up your heavy attack, try to get behind them for the crit. Instantly, as you hit that, hit Wrecking Ball so that the animation cancels and you hit the next ability. Right after that, queue up another heavy attack just to get that chain rolling. If they start to run away and try to heal, hit them with Path of Destiny. If you hit them with that last heavy attack and then want a Path of Destiny as well, just to get another stagger, maybe they're trying to interrupt them for another heal or something, keep pressure on with Path of Destiny from a range. This allows you to close gaps so that you can keep doing damage and take them down. Also, if they start to run, don't be afraid to take your life staff out. You will pump out so much damage like I've shown in the past, comboing it with heavy attacks and your abilities. It's also a great opportunity to get those intensify stacks back up for your next set of heal over times so that they are properly snapshotted. Use whatever CC you can, Keep doing the rotation. Your abilities will come back very fast. And if they run away, hit them with Path of Destiny to stay close. It does not matter who you're dueling. This is my brother actually, and brother competition. Nobody likes to lose here, so we give it our all. Unfortunately, I am the healer. This is just such a strong build, and he is a 300 strength, 100 some con user, and he just can't get my health bar down. You can see windows where I just don't heal and it starts to go down, but when will I ever not be in a heal? So, like usual with this life staff, you're a healing god. In terms of war and outpost rushes, you're really just going to want to dive into the thick of it, get into big groups to get as much CC as you can, and just start hammer training everybody possible. It's the same concept with one target as it would be 5 to 10. Keep everybody healed up, stay in your own heals, and just keep on swinging, baby. I really wish I could have some outpost rush stuff. The queues were a little light when I was trying to queue between last night, this morning. I was really busy this weekend. I apologize, but I'm sure all of you have seen this in wars and outpost rush and all kinds of group stuff. It's just bonkers what it can do. Not only can your healing turn the tide of the battle, but your CC has the capability to completely flip a fight. I really hope you all enjoyed this build. I hope it was thorough enough. I hope it gave you the information you needed to excel with a hammer. I know it's been something a lot of you have been wanting. I tried to shorten up this guide a little bit, but still be thorough about everything I would normally talk about and provide you a little bit more gameplay to understand how you should actually play with it in both PvE and PvP. This build goes along the same lines as mine in the past. You can use this for literally whatever you want to do, but it functions as a guide. I love talking to all of you about it and hearing your thoughts and opinions on what else you can change, what else you can do. Please keep that discussion going. I want to know when I'm wrong. I want to know when you think something else might be better, because I want everybody to have that information. So keep it coming, people. If you choose to do whatever in this build, let me know. If you want to go tank with it, let me know how that's going. I'd love to hear about it. In general, comment something. I'll hit you back. You know I will. It's my favorite part of making these videos, is just connecting with all of you. Thank you for all of the support you've given me. Whether you're doing all that weird YouTube stuff, and here's my reminder, please like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell. Or you're supporting me directly on my Patreon, which, by the way, I do have a Patreon if you're looking to support me in any way and keep this going. So, as tradition, what I'm going to do is just read off all of my patrons like normal. So, thank you, Jacob, Adrian, Thugia, Shane, Gil, Shmeezy, Anarino, Ethan, Ajuro, Nathaniel, Donar, Chad, Nicasio, Joseph, Tarvi, Mummy, Generic Guy, Ronan, Ralph, Bob, and Kamikaze. Thank you all so much for all the support you're giving me. Thank you, everybody, just for watching this video or even considering to comment, subscribe, do whatever. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. I look forward to keeping the content up and producing high-quality stuff that all of you enjoy. So, as always, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you for being you.